The colony of New Horizon burned. Plasma lances carved through the atmosphere like the claws of some vengeful god, turning farmland to glass, reducing habitation domes to molten slag. The sky itself seemed to bleed, painted crimson by the fires below. Captain Ryan Blake watched from the bridge of the Peregrine, his knuckles white around the edge of the tactical display. The scout ship trembled as another shockwave rippled through the system, the Zeperian dreadnought harbinger of dominion looming over the colony like a blade waiting to fall again. "God damn them," whispered Lieutenant Chen, her voice raw. "They're not even targeting military installations. That is a hospital complex going up." Blake didn't answer. His eyes were locked on the feed from the surface, or what was left of it. The colony's governor, Lisa Hayes, had managed one last transmission before the comms array was vaporized. Her face, streaked with soot and blood, flickered on the screen. "They didn't even demand surrender," she said, her voice eerily calm. "No ultimatum, no negotiation, they just burned us." Behind her, the sky flashed with another orbital strike. The transmission cut to static. "Captain," said Ensign Reavers, his voice tight, "the Harbinger is turning. They've spotted us." Blake didn't hesitate. Full retreat. Slipspace coordinates set for Sol. Now. The Peregrine shuddered as its engines flared, the ship lurching away from the dying colony. Behind them, the Harbinger's massive silhouette pivoted, its weapon arrays glowing with building energy. "They're locking on," Chen shouted. "Evasive pattern Delta," Blake barked. The Peregrine twisted violently as the first plasma volley screamed past, close enough to scorch the hull. Alarms blared as the ship's AI calculated their odds of survival. "Fake slipspace drive charging," Reavers reported. 50 seconds. Another blast rocked the ship, sending sparks erupting from a console. Blake gripped his chair, teeth gritted. They wouldn't last another hit. Then, inexplicably, the firing stopped. On the view screen, the Harbinger hung motionless. For a terrible moment, Blake thought they were preparing a final, annihilating strike. But then the dreadnought turned away, its weapons powering down. "They're letting us go," Chen whispered. Blake's stomach turned to ice. He understood. "They want us to run," he said. "They want us to tell Earth what happened here." The slipspace drive whined to life, the stars outside stretching into streaks of light. The last thing Blake saw before the jump was New Horizon, what had once been a thriving colony of 50,000. Now, just another scar on a dead world. And the Harbinger, watching them flee like a predator, satisfied with its kill. The bridge was silent as the Peregrine hurtled toward home. No one spoke. No one needed to. They all knew what this meant. The Galactic Federation hall hummed with the murmurs of 100 species. Holographic banners flickered above the amphitheater, each displaying the sigils of member worlds. The air smelled of ozone and alien pheromones, a cloying mix that made Ambassador Daniel Carter's nose itch. He adjusted the collar of his plain grey uniform, acutely aware of how drab it looked compared to the jeweled carapaces of the Vorak or the iridescent robes of the Zeperians. At his side, Lieutenant Mara Vasquez clenched her fists. "They're not even looking at us," she muttered. Carter didn't reply. He didn't need to. The sea of delegates, tentacled, chitinous, floating, had their backs turned or their eye stalks averted. Only the occasional glance, quick and dismissive, came their way. A gong sounded. The assembly fell silent as Chancellor Krell ascended the central podium. The Vorak leader's armored plates gleamed under the hall's lights, his four arms spread in a gesture of dominance. "The floor recognizes the human delegation," he intoned, his voice dripping with mock formality. Carter stepped forward, the holoprojector at his feet activated, casting the last images from New Horizon into the air. Shattered domes, charred fields, bodies. "This was a colony of 42,000, Carter said, his voice steady. "Women, children, farmers." The Zeperians gave no warning, no demand for surrender. They burned New Horizon because they could. A ripple of movement passed through the assembly. A few delegates shifted uncomfortably. Most didn't react at all. Chancellor Krell's mandibles twitched in what might have been a smile. Ambassador Carter, the Zephyrians have provided documentation proving New Horizon was in disputed space. Their actions, while regrettable, were within their rights as disputed. Carter snapped. The word tore out of him. By whose measure? The Zephyrians drew those borders last week. Krell's claws tapped against the podium. The Galactic Federation recognizes the Zephyrian claim. Your colony was an encroachment. The response, while severe, was lawful. Vasquez made a strangled noise. Carter didn't dare look at her. He kept his eyes locked on Krell. Lawful. You call slaughter lawful. Enough. Krell's voice boomed through the hall. The matter is closed. The Zephyrians will face no censure. The Federation suggests your species focus on rebuilding rather than pointless accusations. Laughter bubbled up from the assembly. A Cerellian delegate, their orb, like eyes glowing with amusement, whispered something to a neighbor. A Zephyrian envoy, his carapace still streaked with soot from New Horizons. Fires smirked. Carter's hands trembled. He forced them still. So that's it. No justice. No consequences. Krell spread his claws. What would you have us do? Your pitiful fleet couldn't scratch a Zephyrian cruiser. Your weapons are centuries behind. You have no leverage, Ambassador, no power. He leaned forward, his voice dropping to a mocking whisper. What will you do? Cry to your primitive ships. The laughter grew louder. Vasquez grabbed Carter's arm. Sir, he shook her off. For a long moment, Carter stood silent, letting the laughter wash over him. Then he reached into his jacket. The hall quieted. He pulled out a data chip. This is Governor Hayes' final transmission, not just her last words, her last moments. He slotted it into the holoprojector. The image that bloomed was shaky, raw. Hayes' face, streaked with blood and sweat, filled the frame. Behind her, the sky burned. They didn't even demand surrender, she gasped. They just burned us. A Zephyrian voice, distorted but clear, cut in. Purge the infestation. The transmission ended. Silence. Krell shifted. A tragic. You will hear her, Carter said, his voice like iron. You will hear all of them. He tapped the chip. Screams filled the hall. Human screams, the sound of plasma lances cutting through homes. The Zephyrian laughter as they fired. A few delegates looked away. Most didn't. When it ended, Carter removed the chip. This is your justice, Chancellor. Krell's antennae twitched. Sentimentality does not change facts. The Zephyrians acted within their rights. The Federation will take no action. Carter nodded slowly. I see. He turned to Vasquez. Lieutenant, send a message to Admiral Singh. Krell's claws clicked. Admiral? Carter didn't smile. You're right, Chancellor. We have no power here. He turned to leave. The assembly parting before him. But we don't need it. As the human delegation walked out, the laughter didn't follow behind them. A Vorak senator whispered, Why do I feel like we just made a mistake? No one answered. The shipyards of Mars buzzed with activity unseen in generations. Admiral Naomi Singh walked through the cavernous dry dock, her boots ringing against the metal catwalk. Below her, the USN Defiance loomed like a sleeping beast, its sleek black hull bristling with new weapon ports. Welders' torches cast flickering blue light across its surface as teams of engineers worked around the clock. Commander Jake Morrison fell into step beside her, a data tablet clutched in his hand. Shield harmonics recalibrated on the Vengeance, he reported. The new railgun batteries are synced and loaded were green across the board. Singh didn't slow her pace. And the payload? Morrison's jaw tightened. Ready, though I still don't like the idea of. You don't have to like it, Singh cut in. You just have to make sure it works. Ahead of them, a holographic star map dominated the center of the command platform. The Zephyrian homeworld glowed red at its heart, surrounded by the dotted lines of their defensive perimeters. Singh stopped before it, her reflection fractured in the shimmering light. "They didn't even pretend it was a mistake," Morrison muttered. "No demands, no warnings, just glassed New Horizon like it was target practice." Singh's fingers hovered over the console. With a tap, the map zoomed in, revealing the charred remains of the colony, blackened domes, skeletal frameworks where homes once stood. The last transmission from Governor Hayes played on loop, her voice crackling through the speakers. "They didn't even demand surrender, they just burned us." A muscle twitched in Singh's cheek. The Federation called it within their rights. Morrison scoffed, because the Zephyrians said the system was disputed, never mind that we'd been there for 20 years. Singh turned away from the hologram. "Disputed space." The words tasted like ash. "That's their excuse for slaughter." Across the dry dock, a crane lifted a massive tungsten rod into place aboard the Defiance. The engineers had stripped every non-essential system to make room for the new armaments. No luxuries, no redundancies, just speed, armor, and enough firepower to crack a planet. Morrison exhaled sharply. "You sure about this? Once we move, Therese no going back." Singh didn't hesitate. They made sure of that when they glassed 1,000,000 of ours. She tapped her comm. "All stations, report." Voices crackled back in rapid succession. "Propulsion at phase slipspace drives primed. Railgun batteries charged and locked. Shield modulation synchronized. They won't see us coming." Singh's gaze swept over the shipyard, the Defiance, the Vengeance, the dozens of smaller strike craft being fitted for the same purpose. Every ship bore fresh scars from rushed refits. Every crew member moved with the grim efficiency of those who'd seen the footage from New Horizon. She opened a fleet, wide channel. "Listen up," she said, her voice cutting through the hum of machinery. "The Zephyrians think we're weak. The Federation thinks we'll beg for scraps. They're wrong." A pause. "We've played by their rules long enough." Morrison handed her the final authorization codes. The holodisplay flickered, updating with the last tactical data. The course was plotted. The weapons were ready. Singh input the codes. "No declarations," she said. "No warnings." The words were quiet, final. They burned ours. Now we burn theirs. The shipyard alarms blared to life. Red lights painting the Defiance in bloodied hues across the dock. Engineers scrambled to clear the umbilicals. Magnetic clamps disengaged with a series of heavy thunks. Morrison watched as the Defiance's engines flared to life, their blue glow casting long shadows. "Godspeed," he murmured. Singh didn't answer. She didn't need to. The ships were already moving. The void between stars was supposed to be empty. The Zephyrian battle group Claw of Supremacy had patrolled it for cycles without incident. Their scanners were the finest in the Federation, their shields impenetrable. Fleet Commander Drothkarn lounged in his command throne, mandibles clicking in amusement as he reviewed the latest reports from the occupied human colony. Then space tore open. Alarms shrieked across the bridge as the USN Defiance erupted from slipspace. Not at the system's edge like civilized species, not with the proper warning beacons, but inside their formation. Drothkarn's ventral eyes widened as tactical displays flared crimson. "All batteries fire," he roared. Plasma lances streaked toward the human vessel. They missed. The Defiance rolled, her thrusters flaring white, hot slipping between the Zephyrian cruisers like a blade between ribs. On the Defiance's bridge, Captain Ryan Blake watched the alien fleet scramble. His fingers tightened around the armrests of his chair. Helm, pattern, delta gunnery, free engagement. The human ships moved like nothing the Zephyrians had ever seen. Where alien vessels lumbered, human destroyers darted. Where Federation tactics demanded orderly lines, the human fleet struck in packs, harrying the flanks, feinting and striking where shields were weakest. Drothkarn's second-in-command sub-commander Vral hissed in dismay. "Their acceleration curves. They shouldn't be able to," a proximity alert screamed. The Defiance had looped behind the dreadnought harbinger of Dominion, so close its ventral thrusters scorched the alien hull. "Shields holding?" Drothkan demanded. "At 97%, Commander." Blake's voice crackled over the Defiance's comms. "Fire main battery." The Zephyrians never saw the projectiles. No energy signature, no plasma trail. Just a series of brutal impacts as tungsten rods accelerated to a fraction of light speed. Punched through the Harbinger's shields like they weren't there. Drothkan's command throne lurched as the dreadnought shuddered. Damage reports flooded his screen. Hull breaches, reactor fluctuations, entire decks venting atmosphere. "Impossible," he snarled. "Shields are at full." On the Defiance, Gunnery Chief Alvarez grinned. "Kinetics don't give a damn about shields, sir." Blake didn't smile. Again. Another volley, another series of detonations. The Harbinger's spinal cannon, pride of the Zephyrian fleet, crumpled like foil. Drothkan's erupted with panicked transmissions. "Commander, the Talon of Justice is breaking apart. Our point defenses can't track their munitions. They're boarding the Razor Wing." The last report made Drothkan's blood run cold. Boarding actions were supposed to be archaic, suicidal against modern warships. Yet human assault pods, sleek and radar, absorbent, latched onto the Razor Wing's hull. Cutting torches flared. Inside the Zephyrian cruiser, armored figures poured through the breaches. They moved in eerie silence, their black armor swallowing the light. Zephyrian defenders fired plasma rifles, only to watch in horror as the humans' ablative plating dispersed the heat. One human, taller than the rest, ripped a door from its housing and hurled it like a discus. It bisected a Zephyrian gunner mid-scream. Drothkan's tactical display was a nightmare. 5 ships dead, 3 more crippled. The humans hadn't lost a single vessel. "Fall back," he bellowed. "Regroup at rally point." The Defiance slid into view directly ahead, her railgun batteries humming with charge. Blake's face appeared on the main screen, his expression ice. "No," he said. The last thing Drothkan saw was the flash of tungsten rods filling his view screen. Aboard the Defiance, Commander Jake Morrison watched the Harbinger of Dominion split apart. Secondary explosions rippled through its hull, casting jagged shadows across the bridge. "All Zephyrian vessels," Blake announced over open comms, "surrender or be destroyed." Silence. Then, one by one, alien ships powered down their weapons. Morrison exhaled. They really thought their shields would save them? Blake turned toward the helm, set course for the Zephyrian homeworld. His voice was quiet. They haven't seen anything yet. The golden energy shields of the Zephyrian homeworld flared to life as the human fleet emerged from slipspace. High Prelate Vexis watched from his command spire, his 4 eyes narrowing as the tactical displays updated. The human ships were outnumbered 10 to 1. Their vessels were smaller, their formations loose. He allowed himself a ripple of satisfaction across his scaled hide. "Pathetic," Vexis hissed. "They come to die with honor. How very human." His second, in command, a younger Zephyrian with less restraint, flicked his tail in amusement. "Shall we broadcast their destruction to the Federation? A lesson for any who would defy us?" Vexis didn't answer. His gaze locked onto one ship, the USN Vengeance. It hung back from the others, its silhouette different, bulkier. Something about it made his crest flatten against his skull. On the bridge of the Vengeance, Admiral Naomi Singh watched the Zephyrian defenses activate. The energy shields shimmered like molten gold, a perfect dome over their world, the most advanced in the galaxy, untouchable. "Admiral," her tactical officer said, "their shield harmonics are locked in, they're at full strength." Singh didn't blink, deploy payload. A single warhead detached from the Vengeance. No propulsion flare, no energy signature, just a dark, unmarked cylinder tumbling silently toward the Zephyrian shield. Vexis saw it too. His claws dug into the command console. "What is that?" His sensors couldn't classify it. No explosive yield, no radiation, just mass, probably a surrender offering. His second scoffed. The warhead hit the shield and kept going. Vexus's crest shot upright. Impossible. The shield didn't buckle, didn't fracture. The warhead simply passed through. Like the shield wasn't even there. On the Vengeance, Singh's comm crackled to life. Vexus's voice, raw with panic, filled the bridge. "What have you done?" Singh leaned forward, her voice colder than the void between stars. "Taught you fear." The warhead detonated, not with fire, not with light. The explosion was silent, invisible. But the Zephyrian shield grid didn't just fail. It unraveled. The golden dome flickered, then dissolved like smoke in the wind. Vexus's screens erupted with alerts. Every defensive platform, every orbital battery, offline. The human fleet's weapons systems lit up, targeting locks resolving. "Admiral," Singh's weapons officer said, "their homeworld is exposed." A beat of silence. "Hold fire." The order echoed across the human fleet. Every gun remained charged. Every missile stayed in its tube. Vexus's breath came in ragged heaves. His claws trembled. The humans could glass his world right now. They had the shot. "Why?" he transmitted. Voice breaking. "Why stop?" Singh's reply was simple. "We're not here to destroy you. We're here to prove we can." The weight of those words settled over the Zephyrian command center, their invincible shield, their pride, their certainty, gone. And the humans hadn't even fired a single shot. On the Vengeance, Singh turned to her comm officer. "Open a channel to the Federation, full broadcast." Across the galaxy, in every council hall, every warship, every capital, the transmission went live. The Zephyrian shield grid's collapse played on loop. And the message was clear. Humanity had never been weak. They'd just been waiting. The holographic displays in the Galactic Federation hall flickered to life, casting eerie blue light across the assembled delegates. Chancellor Krell's chitinous plates rattled as he rose from his throne. Like Seat, his compound eyes reflecting the unfolding catastrophe. The images showed the Zephyrian homeworld's shield grid collapsing in real time, golden hexagonal barriers shattering like glass under an invisible hammer. "What is this?" Krell's voice boomed across the chamber, his mandibles clicking in agitation. The Vorak delegation behind him shifted uneasily, their antennae twitching. "Activate the emergency feeds. I want full sensor data from the Zephyrian defense grid." A junior Vorak technician scrambled at the controls. "We're receiving direct feed from High Prelate Vexus's flagship Chancellor, the Humans." The main display split into multiple views. One showed the USN Vengeance hanging motionless above the Zephyrian homeworld, its angular hull gleaming in the distant star's light. Another displayed the planet's surface, where millions of Zephyrians were scrambling for shelter. But the third view made Krell's circulatory fluid run cold. The shield generators themselves were melting, their crystalline structures flowing like liquid under some unimaginable force. Ambassador Carter remained seated at the human delegation's modest table, his fingers steepled before him. His calm demeanor contrasted sharply with the panic spreading through the hall. Senators from a dozen species were shouting over each other, their translators struggling to keep up with the sudden flood of panicked communication. "Silence!" Krell roared, slamming a clawed fist onto the podium. The noise subsided just enough for Vexus's transmission to come through clearly. The Zephyrian leader's normally smooth carapace was streaked with stress. Fluids, his eye stalks trembling. "They've done something to our shield harmonics." Vexus's voice crackled through the speakers. "The generators are overloading across the entire network. We can't." The transmission dissolved into static as another shield segment failed, spectacularly on screen, sending a visible shockwave through the upper atmosphere. Senator Telek of the Rixian Concord stood abruptly, his bioluminescent spots flashing crimson. "This is an act of total war. The Federation must. You will do nothing." Carter's voice cut through the chaos like a knife. He didn't raise his voice, didn't even stand, but every eye in the chamber turned to him. The Zephyrians burned New Horizon to ash without warning, without negotiation. "This," he gestured to the screens, "this is merely a demonstration." Krell's antennae stiffened. Demonstration. You're annihilating their planetary defenses. Carter tapped a command into his datapad. The displays changed again, showing new signatures emerging from slipspace throughout known space. Dozens of human warships appeared simultaneously in every contested system, their railgun batteries cycling up with ominous precision. Admiral Singh's fleet has standing orders, Carter continued. If any Zephyrian vessel so much as powers weapons in any of these systems, their homeworld burns. Not just the shields, not just the military installations, the entire planet. A horrified murmur spread through the assembly. The Thalaxian delegation's frills stood completely erect, their usually pastel skin darkening with distress. The normally stoic Gelmac representatives were whispering urgently among themselves, their stone-like features showing uncharacteristic cracks of emotion. Krell rounded on Carter, his claws extending fully. You wouldn't dare. The collateral damage, the billions of civilians. Like the 12,000 civilians on New Horizon. Carter's eyes were hard as flint. Like the children in the agricultural domes your investigation claimed were military targets. The chamber fell deathly quiet, except for the continuing reports from the Zephyrian homeworld. The shield collapse was accelerating now, entire continental segments going dark as generator. After generator failed catastrophically. On another screen, the USN Vengeance's missile bays yawned open, revealing rows of ominous black projectiles. A Vorak senator near the back. One of the younger representatives whispered something that carried through the silent hall. They could have done this any time. Carter heard it. He turned slowly to face the senator. Yes, for the past 17 years, since we first cracked your shield harmonics during the Tau Ceti skirmish, we chose not to. He swept his gaze across the assembled delegates, because, unlike some species here, humanity understands restraint. Krell's mandibles worked soundlessly for a moment before he found his voice. What? What do you want? Recognition, Carter said simply. Full sovereignty for all human colonies. No more disputed territories. No more accidental incursions. He tapped his datapad again, and the Vengeance's missile bays closed with synchronized finality. And most importantly, never again underestimate what happens when you push humanity too far. On the screens, the last of the Zephyrian shield generators failed with a spectacular energy discharge that lit up the planet's night side like a second sun. The USN Vengeance pivoted gracefully and jumped to slipspace, leaving the defenseless world behind. But the message was clear. Next time, they wouldn't leave. The silence in the Federation Hall was absolute. Even Krell, normally so quick with bluster and threats, found himself without words. Every delegate present understood they were witnessing a fundamental shift in galactic power dynamics. The humans hadn't just defeated the Zephyrians. They'd exposed the fragility of every species' defenses in one brutal stroke. Carter finally stood, straightening his uniform jacket. The vote on human colony sovereignty will be held in 1 standard hour. I suggest you all consider very carefully how you cast your ballots. He turned to leave, then paused at the chamber's great doors. Oh, and Chancellor, tell the Zephyrians their shield should start coming back online in about 6 hours, assuming they don't try anything foolish in the meantime. As the doors hissed shut behind him, the hall erupted into chaos. Krell slumped into his seat, his chitin making a hollow sound against the polished stone. All around him, delegates were shouting, arguing, some even praying to their various gods. But one truth stood above the noise. Humanity had just rewritten the rules of galactic politics, and there wasn't a damn thing anyone could do about it. The Federation Hall had never been so quiet. The usual hum of 100 alien languages, the rustle of ceremonial robes, the clatter of appendages on data consoles, all gone. Only the faint shimmer of holograms remained, projecting the same image across every screen. The Zephyrian homeworld's shield grid collapsing like a dying star. Human warships hovering just beyond firing range. Ambassador Daniel Carter stepped forward, his boots clicking against the polished floor. The sound echoed. Every eye in the amphitheater followed him. He didn't hurry. He didn't flinch. He simply walked to the center of the chamber, a single datapad in his hand. Chancellor Krell's chitinous plates rattled as he shifted in his seat. His massive claws gripped the armrests too tightly. The Vorak had spent centuries as the Federation's dominant power, his species the arbiters of law, the enforcers of borders. Now, his mandibles twitched, his voice uncharacteristically small. This is an outrage, Krell managed, but the words lacked their usual bite. Carter didn't look at him. He activated the datapad, and the terms appeared above him in crisp, glowing text, simple, direct. No room for negotiation. Human colonies are sovereign. No more disputed space. No more accidental incursions. Violations will be met with immediate and disproportionate response. A murmur rippled through the assembly. A Tarkelian senator leaned toward his neighbor, his frills flaring. They can't be serious. This undermines centuries of Carter's, voice cut through the whispers like a blade. We are, he finally turned to Krell. The Zeperians learned the hard way. Would you like to be next? Krell's claws flexed, but he didn't rise. For the first time in recorded history, a Vorak chancellor hesitated. His eyes flicked to the holograms again, to the human fleet poised above the Zeperian capital. One order, and their world would burn, just like New Horizon. Senator Vrix of the Ceralian Accord stood, her bioluminescent markings pulsing with anxiety. Ambassador, surely Therese room for discussion. The Federation has protocols. Treaties. You had treaties. Carter corrected. You had protocols, and you ignored them when it suited you. He tapped the datapad, and the term solidified, locking into the Federation's central database. No vote, no debate. This isn't a request. It's a fact. Silence. Then, from the back of the hall, a single voice. Ambassador Tlek of the Rixian Combine, a species known for their mercenary fleets, cleared his throat. And if we refuse, Carter smiled. It wasn't a pleasant expression. Try us. The room seemed to hold its breath. Krell's mandibles clicked once, twice, then stilled. He looked at the other chancellors, the senators, the military advisors. None met his gaze. None dared. Finally, the Vorak chancellor slumped in his seat, his massive frame suddenly looking smaller. Defeated the Federation. Acknowledges humanity's terms. Carter nodded. Good. He turned to leave, then paused, glancing back over his shoulder. One more thing. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. The next time someone burns one of our colonies, he let the words hang, let them sink in. We won't stop at your shields. Then he walked out, the doors hissing shut behind him. No one followed, no one protested. And for the first time in galactic history, the Federation understood what it meant to fear humanity.